from an acquisition marketing standpoint, what's really important is for us to make that first sale, make that first purchase for you. So it's everything leading up to that first purchase, including, like I said, all the top of funnel tactics with like TV and direct mail, all the way down to those performance marketing ones like Google or Facebook.
Hey, welcome to Unleashed. I'm your host, Will Bachman. We just heard from today's guest, Seiya Vogt, the VP of Growth at Boxed, where he is responsible for marketing and B2B sales. Boxed calls itself the easiest way to stock up and save for your household essentials. And my family has been a regular customer for several years, so it was a lot of fun to speak with an executive at the company. In today's discussion, Seiya provides a behind-the-scenes view of the tools available to the modern marketer, and along the way he explains why direct mail, that's right, good old hard copy mail, is making a comeback. After this episode, you may be inspired to stock up on a bulk order of household cleaners or snacks or health and wellness products. If so, check out their website, boxed.com. And you can sign up for their emails, and you'll see Seiya's team in action coming back at you. You can learn more about Seiya's background on his LinkedIn profile, and a link is in the show notes. If you like this episode, consider signing up for the Unleashed email. Each week, I'll send you a summary of recent episodes, some recommended reading, and consulting tips. To sign up, visit askunleashed.com. Hello, Seiya. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Seiya, about once every month or two, maybe we'll get a big green and white box on our doorstep that I can barely lift with all our household supplies coming from Boxed. And it's really cool to have you on the show. Tell me a little bit. I'd love to hear, maybe before we dive into Boxed, tell us a little bit about your background in marketing and customer acquisition.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I guess we'll do a little bit of an intro on Boxed a little bit later. But so I'm the VP of Growth at Boxed, and what that really means is understanding. I'd like to explain it as saying that that I understand every single aspect of my marketing funnel from start to finish. So, when you distill that down, it's how does someone hear about us in the first place? How do they come to our website? And what do they do on our website? Like, what's the actual customer journey look like? All the way down to placing an order and then interacting with them post-order, right? So it's the acquisition, the retention, the life cycle, marketing, and then the sort of loyalty of that customer base are all things that I think about.
Great. Tell us about Boxed. For listeners who have not, maybe it's not in their area or they haven't used Boxed before, just give us the quick sketch on what Boxed is.
For sure. So Boxed, I like to explain it as it's the easiest way to stock up and save for your household essentials. So we sell things all in bulk sizes, straight to your door. There's no membership fee. There's, in the contiguous U.S. states, you get it in 2 days or less, straight to your door. Like Will was saying, a lot of times it'll appear in a huge box that you can kind of like lift through your door just because we sell those like bulk size goods. So you can kind of see us like play in the same realm of, the Amazons, the Jets, the Walmarts, the Costco's of the world. We get to kind of, play in that area more in like the bulk size goods, but also thinking about like how else we can cater to the customer bases. So, for 5 or 6 cities, we've expanded to fresh. We have liquor and a decent portion of the U.S. as well. So really that like one-stop solution to be able to buy what you need for your house.
Am I correct in that I heard that when Boxed got started, you didn't have like your own inventory. You just go to Costco to buy the.
Yeah. That is a little bit of an open secret for us in a way. We have the typical sort of like startup journey. We, started out in our CEO's garage and kind of he saw an opportunity that, Costco didn't have an online store. So why don't I just like figure out the best way to sell those items online? And that's really how we started. I think like as we matured and grew, we have now facilities all across the U.S. We, wanted to create both our own brand. So we actually have our own private label sort of premium, household product brand called Prince and Spring. And we also have now great relationships and connections to all of our CPG partners that, if I say names, like you'll definitely have heard of them, that help us actually have our own inventory. So we've kind of like done a complete 180, I think, of those early sort of stages of our company. But, we've been able to, grow to that stage where now we're working directly with both sides.
Cool. I'd love to, obviously a lot of this will be confidential. We don't need to get into specific numbers, but I'd love to hear what you can share about how Boxed goes about customer acquisition. I remember for a time there was sort of a lot of subway ads in New York City. That's a thing, and you were, so I'd love to kind of hear the different channels that you found effective and how you think about deploying them, as a VP of growth.
Yeah, so you think about like what it's working in this day and age, right? The channels that I'm going to say like are ones that it's not going to shock anyone, right? And you need to play in those because honestly, the volume is still there. So we still do a lot of volume on Facebook, on Google. We have affiliate as a large channel for us as well, and we try to kind of think of our marketing structure in kind of two different ways, right? So one is, what are we doing on the top of funnel? What are we doing to reach a user for the very first time? They haven't heard about Box. We're not, quite a household name yet, unfortunately, right? So like, how do you connect with that person, tell them who you are, make that introduction further up the funnel, so then you can sort of drive them to your website for the first time? And then how do you actually make that close, right? How do you sort of, drive the actual sale? So on one side, we have what I'd consider to be top of funnel tactics. TV is a good example. You mentioned the subway ads. We haven't run them in a little bit, but they were really effective on the local level. And then we started doing a lot with direct mail as well. So that's actually something that I found pretty fascinating as more of a digital marketer. Like you don't expect like postcards in the mail to work really well, but when they're targeted in the right way and when the creative speaks to that targeting, it can be a really effective channel. So and stop me if I get too tactical here, but one of the things that has really worked well for us is that we will take sort of segments that are our best customers and create lookalike audiences. And we work with partners in order to sort of send those segments, those lookalike audiences, actual direct mail. So, again, we kind of know, in the realm of who they are. So we can create, like I said, creative that speaks to those particular segments. And then we can also retarget those folks too. So, I can mention a partner of ours called Posty. We also worked with Pebble Post as well. And you can just put a pixel on your website and retarget that audience and have direct mail sent straight to your door because it matches via IP. You have to be a little bit careful here. Obviously, you're not playing with, PII, like actual information, but it's a way in which you can be a little bit more targeted, a little bit more smart than just like kind of a spray and pray method of just like, hey, can we send postcards to every single address, in the New York City area or something like that? Because that, honestly, that's not going to work. It's going to be expensive, and you're going to target people who probably don't want anything to do with you or your brand.
So let me get this straight. So this is, amazing to me. I'm kind of naive at this stuff, that you can have a pixel on your website so that if someone goes and visits your website, they don't log in, they don't make an order, they just check out the website, okay. Then you can say, oh, someone from that IP address visited the website. You can, through your partners, connect it to an actual physical address and send that person a piece of mail.
Yeah, that's right. So all you need to do, and like I said, there's a few partners that we've worked with. Posty is one of them, where all you need to do is put a pixel on your website. It's kind of like a retargeting pixel, right? And you can even target people who've done certain actions or haven't done certain actions. So, for instance, we know if you come to our site, whether or not you've made a purchase or not, right? And we can target you accordingly. Say, sometimes maybe you've placed a few orders, but you've since dropped off, or hey, maybe you haven't placed an order yet, right? Those two customers are going to have very different messaging sent to them because the activation elements are going to be different as well, right? So, it allows you to kind of very granularly, drill down into how that segmentation works and figure out the best way to actually go after those customers.
Talk to us a little bit talk to the listeners a little bit about the kind of data that's out there, in the universe about us as consumers that would let you do that kind of lookalike. So, maybe you can give me an example.
It's an interesting point, right? And I think that I think it's kind of a secret these days, right? That there's more data about us than we would like to have online. And I think we as marketers like owe it to ourselves, but also our customers to think about like the ways in which to use that are not going to be like overly creepy or not going to be like too invasive, right? And I think that's a really important sort of distinction to make, because if you're coming to our site and taking some action, if you create an experience that better speaks to that user, it's going to be better, right? So like if you come to our site and fill out information, do orders, and honestly, this is like for us, we're at one level, you can imagine where like, Amazon, some of these other players are in terms of how much they know about you, right? But if you can do it in a way that's very specific and maybe a little bit more subtle than most, it'll work a lot better, because you're kind of getting past that factor of like, oh my God, they're targeting me or they're following me across the internet, right? Because we've all, I'm sure, kind of felt like that.
Yeah.
So to give you kind of an example of this, right? So we actually, in our email, have inserted some, what I would call like a more micro personalization. So if you're on our site and you've searched for some items, we may have a model on an email that actually surfaces up the items that you were searching for, right? So it sounds like, again, it's kind of simple, like we've kind of seen this elsewhere, but if you're not using that as like the hero image, we're not using that as like the main sort of story of what this email is about, and it's more about the personalization within the email itself. We saw that it had like over 100% increase of clicks in that email, because again, we're kind of like servicing up the things that we think you're going to be interested in. So, I think in that sense, like using our data to provide a better customer experience is definitely something that, feels right? And it's something that like will allow you to have a better time using our service and our platform than you would going somewhere else that like literally couldn't care about you.
Oh, sure. In terms of like the personas that you talked about earlier, if wouldn't ask you to reveal kind of like one of your proprietary ones, but I imagine it'd be like a 2-income family with 3 kids and working, both working parents with this income level or something is probably our good customer because they're busy. And maybe it's like what's their political leanings or what kind of car do they have. So kind of how many different things would be included in a persona that you would use to create this lookalike thing? What might one of those look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think it's going to be a mixture of data that you have and then data that you have to like fill in and kind of like, understand. And there's far better partners than the ones that like, we may have like internally that can get you those answers, as you said, right? Like, what kind of car do you drive and all that kind of stuff. Like we don't capture that information. But what we do capture is, a lot of demographic information about you and maybe the ways in which you use our platform or ways in which people like you have used our platform. So, for instance, we have a healthy B2B business as well. So like, are you a business? Are you an individual? As you said, like, are you, married? Are you, do you have kids? Are your kids at home? Are they sort of off to college? Are you a high income family or a lower income family, right? Like those are sort of like the elements in which from a demographic angle that you can kind of put together to understand who you should be targeting, like what your cohorts are. And then we layer that in with behavioral modeling too. Like I said, what are you purchasing from us? What, items are sort of unique compared to some other people? We've had, I don't know if you're a big fan of Miracle Whip, Will, but like we've had a certain, segment groups like buy that particular item predominantly over everyone else. So we can kind of use those things to understand like what your buy rate is, like how often you purchase those items, and be able to surface those up, both in terms of like, hey, we think you're going to be running out of this particular item, but also when you come to the platform, if we think you're type, right, like we can start surfacing those items to you as well and get a little bit more personal, like I said, more of on a subtle level than on something that's like, very in your face, like we know who you are and we know where you live, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about testing or experiments or pilots. I'd love to hear kind of how you think about that. It sounds like you've probably done some of those just to see if the direct mail works before you do this massive campaign. How do you think about testing and experiments?
Yeah. So I kind of think in 2 different ways, and to be honest, like like the piece of advice that I can give is that you should always be testing. You should always have some sort of test online. Like, our testing cadence is like, every single week that we're working on something, every, 2 weeks, like something may be launching, right? And we test in a concurrent manner to make sure that like, we have a control and we have things live. We have, a coupon versus, a giveaway or something along those lines. We were testing two different incentives. So I kind of think about it as, one is the more tactical approaches. So what are those like quick hits that you just want to see whether or not it can increase on like that 10% level, right? And that might be something like I said, like a different offer. We had one recently that was, that we tested that, was $10 off of 50, and we tested that versus like, $20 off of 100 and like $15 off of like, $80 or something like that. And what we found was, even though, you may save more if you, spend to that like $100 level, that minimum caused people to maybe not want to place as many orders. So we had almost, twice as many orders, 30% more revenue or something like that, ordering at that $10 off of 50 level. And we saw many customers go beyond that $50 minimum. So it didn't even stop them from, purchasing way more products from us. What it did was it just lowered that threshold of what they needed in order to unlock that. So that's like an example of like a tactical test that we would then take and say, all right, now that we did that, like how do we operationalize it? How do we put it into our email flow? So let's actually take this offer and use this all the time and automate it, right? So that's like one side. And then there's like these bigger, swings that you need to be making, right? Like those would be like features or new product decisions that, I'm working very closely with our head of product or, head of data science on, right? Like what are the things that we feel like can really move the needle? And those are just as important. They honestly just take a little bit longer. So, we're still in the process of launching a few different features that, I would love to kind of share once we get a little bit closer to the launch. But, those are things that when you plan it out with the different stakeholders within the team, you have to really understand all the sort of financial elements in there, right? Like what versions can you show that sort of makes sense from a financial perspective and from a sort of data perspective, but also, really think about like how does it resonate with the customer? Is it, simple enough to understand? Is it actually something that they want, right? And when you release those, you really want to release very different variations of it so that again, you can continuously learn and understand what's working and what's not working.
Have you had any surprises with tests or experiments, things that just either failed or just like wildly succeeded and just kind of surprised you?
Yeah, I think something that did surprise me is for our loyal customers. So, hopefully people like you will. Dollars off didn't actually matter as much as, giveaways did. So, we sort of went and did some tests between, would you want X percentage off or whatever, or do you want like a full retail size, item that we will ship to you for free, right? So give you like that more tangible value for it. And for customers who are always going to purchase from us, or customers that like may purchase from us, on a regular basis, but maybe not once a month, it actually activated them way more than just giving them dollars. So I think in that perspective, like knowing how to activate certain customer segments or groups is really important to like drill in and really figure it out, right? Because it's something that, may not be as obvious, right?
Yeah, it kind of almost gets into behavioral economics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do you consult with behavioral economists or do you just kind of use gut instinct plus testing to come up with ideas?
Yeah, so for the most part, we try to do most of this internally. So, I'm lucky enough to have a really solid data science team that I can talk to about all of this in terms of modeling and testing and really sort of truly understanding what is moving the needle, what's incremental, what's not. And then it's just about like, again, talking to your customer base, like understanding who they are, what they care about, what items they need, right? Like thinking how we link up with our merch team. Like, we started to see that some of our customers needed some surprise and delight type of items. And then we started carrying them. So we started carrying things like, unicorn cereal and unicorn mac and cheese and stuff like that. Because for whatever reason, unicorns are in and our customers really wanted to buy it, right? But you're not going to really understand that just by like, talking to outside consultants. I think you're going to understand that by like talking to your actual customers. And that's something that's really, vital to our approach as well.
Yeah. But it's, you also wouldn't discover things like this, do people want a discount or an actual item without testing it and seeing what really works, which is kind of
exactly
what you've been doing.
Yep,
Even
exactly.
giving people maybe like more dollars, it's kind of, they're irrational because they could use those dollars just to buy the extra item, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah.
Tell me about the term performance marketing. How does that fit into what you do?
Yeah. So I think going back to what you were asking me about, like what channels we use and things like that, I would say that, how I kind of, mentioned the big three like Facebook, Google, affiliate marketing, stuff like that, versus say more top of funnel tactics like TV, direct mail, right? Like I think performance marketing is all about like that, many times it's called like similar phrases about, direct response and stuff like that, right? You're paying for someone to take a particular action. That's essentially what performance marketing is. I would say for most people, it's going to be placing an order or purchasing or signing up or dropping off a lead or some sort of like major conversion action. That's what you want to set your budgets and set your campaigns based on. So for us, it's about placing an order, right? So, our Google campaigns are very bottom of the funnel. They're very like, we'll target certain terms such as, I want groceries in bulk. I want, paper towels or toilet paper or stuff like that. But we'll also do things like Google Shopping where you're literally bidding for items to show up in search. And when people are clicking in and, placing their orders, that's essentially, trying to drill down that level in terms of CAC and in terms of the other maybe metrics that you want to think about, right? Performance marketing is where you're going to spend that time trying to drill down into, one or two major metrics that will drive just pure sales and pure actions into your business.
And when you say affiliate marketing, could you explain that to me?
Yeah. So for us, affiliate marketing is, on the very simplistically, it's like our partnership with like, deal sites and like coupon sites and stuff like that. So you may have heard of like Ebates. I think they just rebranded to Rakuten, but they're a great example of someone where, you'll want to go and, get a little coupon for and then be able to place an order through our site. But it can be as like complex or interesting as working with, say, like American Express. Like they have great deals for their members, right? Or they have, or other of our partners such as like a Drop, which is a new app that essentially will give you extra points if you were to shop with us versus say shop on Amazon or somewhere else, right? So it kind of like helps create that loyalty and helps sort of bridge the incentives, but is mainly used in this like same performance engine, right? Like you want to drive additional sales, and that's where it kind of like is drilled down into.
Tell me a little bit about what an organization looks like and the skills required to run a kind of a growth marketing engine the way you do.
Yeah, so I've decided to split up my org into 3, and if you count sales, into 4 sort of major sections. So, acquisition marketing, retention, and right now it's like retention and loyalty is one org as well. And then a third one, which is kind of interesting, it's labeled as customer growth, but it's essentially customer journey and conversion rate optimization. So I'll kind of like break those 3 down, but what it really is distilling is the exact customer journey, right? So from an acquisition marketing standpoint, what's really important is for us to make that first sale, make that first purchase for you. So it's everything leading up to that first purchase, including, like I said, all the top of funnel tactics with like TV and direct mail, all the way down to those performance marketing ones like Google or Facebook. And then once they place their first order, from second order to around, anywhere above like 10 or, 100 or whatever is our retention and loyalty buckets. And those are where I said, like, there's going to be something there where, how do we make Box a more sticky solution? How do we make it so that, you actually want to buy these items? Because at the end of the day, if you're not buying from us, you're buying these products elsewhere because we sell what, you need for your house, right? it's really important for, say, email to live there, our CRM, any SMS messaging, like retargeting, all of these kind of aspects of, now our brand, let's educate you a little bit more about them, and let's educate you about like our story. You mentioned like, the garage, like all that kind of stuff. Like, how do you connect with your customers a little bit better? That lives within this like, retention sort of loyalty team. And then lastly, the customer journey, the customer growth one. This is where all those tactical tests that we've talked about are live in, right? Which is, things like an on-site offer test, or, we tried something which is, trying an incentive offering for, buying, getting a 15% off versus getting a free 6-pack of toilet paper, something like that, right? Like what actually resonates with our customers on our site. That's something that, for a growth org sometimes lives within marketing. And I found it to be something that I find really important to have under me, because, I'm trying to think about the entire journey from start to finish. So, that person in particular works really closely with our product team in order to understand what tests we should be running, or how can we better optimize certain pages. How do we think about visualizing our price or something like that,
What's that mean? Visualizing the price?
Yeah, sorry. So that could be something like, because we sell bulk size goods, right? So, if you're looking for a box of Cheerios online, you may see it as, $3 or $2.50 or something like that, right? But we sell 2 boxes, much bigger boxes, for about, $6.70, I think. And when you think about the actual value you're getting for that box, it's going to be buying from us. You save more than 2x by doing so, right? But but when you sort of land on the page and you see, oh my God, Cheerios is $6.70, like you may bounce immediately, because you're not thinking about the value. You're thinking about the sticker shock, right? Just the actual price. So there's ways in which that we're trying to test on site. Like how can we better visualize it? How can we better sort of explain who we are quicker? Because you only have, it's less than a minute, right? It's less than 10 seconds of someone's time once they land on their page for them to just bounce and say, you know what, I don't want to buy this.
Right. So you have to, maybe unitize it somehow and show it versus, what's the price per ounce or something.
Exactly. But yes, exactly. Yeah, that's right. So like that sort of experience of trying to figure out how to retain someone on the site itself, I think has to live, in this sort of role and in this position. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the price per Cheerio?
Yeah, right. Get it at that level.
Get down to basis points.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So, and talk to me a little bit about the retention and loyalty piece. What? Tell me a little bit about just how that works.
Yeah, so I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like really knowing your audience, or being able to drill down like who they are and what kind of data you have, right? Like how it speaks to you. Because how do you actually operationalize that and use that? That'll be your retention and loyalty team. So we have our own loyalty program called Boxed Up that we give special discounts to, or special previews, or like items that they other users of our site can't buy, stuff like that. That's like that may sort of resonate with one group of people who are so loyal to us that they're always going to buy from us, right? And how can we just cater to them to have more items that they want to purchase? How do we better service up things that are new? That might be something we do with that particular segment. Versus like, I think nurturing and understanding the customers earlier on their life cycle is, vital. So, I mentioned that the acquisition team mainly works on sort of driving that initial purchase, but afterwards, if my acquisition team isn't thinking about, that next step as well and linking up with retention, it's not going to work, right? Because you can be easily incentivized to drive, low quality customers to us. But what's really important is to be able to link those two together and say, what are the types of people that are going from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 100, right? Like that's where, it is a little bit more about like the messaging, or understanding like what messaging is going to resonate with one segment versus another. So, does Che, our CEO, does his story sort of resonate with one group versus, you're just going to shop with us and get a bunch of deals, right? Like those are two very different things, but they're going to speak to an audience very differently. And that's where you have to like combine that data of how people are using your site to testing that different messaging against those groups.
Let's talk a little bit about the B2B side. How do you go about kind of the growth on the B2B side?
I think in some aspects, it's kind of like the perfect world for us, right? Like we sell, the essentials that you need for both your house and your office, like all those paper supplies, plates, towels and toilet paper and all the snacks that you might need for your break room or anywhere else. It's about like making sure that we have the right items and the right talking points in order to better service those types of customers. Because we get a decent amount of inbound interest, and it's just about like routing them in the right way and making sure our team is talking to them in the right way. But, how do we speak to an office manager? Because that's who we, generally we sell to. How do we speak to an office manager who right now is either having to go down to the store and buy all these products and like put them out herself or himself, versus giving them a one-stop solution that, all they have to do is log in and choose what items they want and get shipped to their door. It's like the value prop is already there. So you just need to be able to talk through, the pain points, essentially the pain points for that person, and also make sure that we have the items in stock that they need, right? So what we're trying to do right now is create that one-stop solution for them, so they don't have to go anywhere else. They don't have to buy online at 5 different stores. They can just come to us and buy everything here. And I think trying to match what we can have and offer to the actual customer base like that is key to our growth on the B2B side. But honestly, we're not trying to sell inexpensive SaaS software. We're selling paper towels and toilet paper at the end of the day, right? So I think like as long as you can humanize that connection, we'll be able to link up and work with our B2B customers in the right way.
Seiya, how do you personally kind of just stay current? There's so much kind of development, and new kind of tools and services available all the time in your space. How do you keep up to date? Do you go to conferences? Do you just chat with some colleagues that you trust? Do you follow, news online or websites? How do you kind of keep up to date to make sure that you're not, missing some great new tool?
Yeah, I mean, I think the beauty and sort of, as you say, like the issue with staying current these days is that things are changing all the time, and they're going back in like cyclical ways, right? Like, would we have said that direct mail was a great way to like acquire customers, 5, 6, 10 years ago or something? Like, probably not, right? Or it's something that, came back into the forefront, due to new technologies that allow you to better target customers. So I think, obviously it's very important. I try to keep up with, by reading online, like there's different sites that you can go to, like Growth Hackers, stuff like that. So I remember learning SEO in a lot of ways, search engine optimization on moz.com.
Okay.
They're one of like the leaders in the search engine optimization area. So I try to like read the new content that goes out there. So there's always elements of niche of sites that can speak to a particular topic that I would say go out there, find out about. There's different thought leaders in each of these and sort of follow them. But I think you're right. Like going to conferences, speaking to your colleagues, like speaking to other people in the space is vital. So like I'll try to talk to other heads of marketing, heads of growth, like elsewhere, just to get a sense of like, hey, what's working? What's working for you? What's working for me? Start sharing that, because we all have the same issues, right? And and luckily there's a big enough market out there that we can all sort of learn from and gain and understand and improve. And I think everyone just wants to like share their story and share, their learnings with the rest of the world. So, I found that everyone's willing to talk and have a conversation about it.
You mentioned thought leaders. Any folks in particular that you follow that you really respect in this whole space of growth?
Yeah. On like the search side, there's a guy named Rand Fishkin who I think has had a lot of early stage. So he started Moz and had some great stories about building the brand itself, the company itself, as well as just like search in general. For analytics, there's a guy named Avanesh Kaushik. I don't know if you're familiar, but he's like a great leader in like the, analytics space to understand like multi-touch attribution and stuff like that. So, there's people out there that kind of are an expert in everything, which is great. You can always find someone to follow.
Yeah, I'd like to check that one out. I'm sorry, what was the name again for the analytics person?
Oh, Avinash Kaushik. Yeah, you kind of have to search and maybe spell it out. It's a little bit one of those more unique names.
All right. And beyond Growth Hacker and Moz.com, are there other sites that you check out?
I would just look up, what you're trying to learn, and there's going to be sort of leaders for that as well. And some of the services out there are really quite good. So, like if you're learning about, email marketing, like honestly, some of these brands have amazing articles about email marketing, like MailChimp, right? Like you can learn a lot just by like reading their blog. I really like Unbounce as well. It's like a service that has a landing page builder. And they have a lot of great content about like how to create the best landing pages or what sort of landing pages are effective versus others. So I think if you find some of these brands, some of these services, like, honestly, they have like better content writers working for them than some of these thought leaders may have.
Yeah, they can afford it because it's really building their brand.
Yeah, exactly.
That one for landing page builders, what's that firm again?
Unbounce. So UNBOUNCE.
Oh, I got it. So as opposed to bouncing, so you want unbounce. Got it.
That's right. Yeah.
That's very cool. And just turning to the personal side a little bit, I'm curious. I always ask guests this: are there any just habits that you've found really successful, either ones that you've had for forever or ones that you've recently adopted that you find just really help on your effectiveness and productivity?
I think as leaders, I think sometimes we can be stretched a little thin, or we can be put into, you're just like in meetings all the time, right? Or you're thinking a little bit too high level. You're not thinking like, as you said yourself, how do you kind of keep updated with everything, right? I think it's really important to take a day or so. Like I try to take a day every so often, just work from home, like, have no meetings during that day, and just literally just go through stuff that is interesting to me that I think can help move the business. And more times than not, like I'll come up with an idea that I then come back to my team with and say like, hey, it may be annoyingly so, right? Like, hey, can we try this? Like, hey, can we think about this? And I think like having that time to spend a little bit outside of, the everyday hectic bubble can help a lot. I read, I forget who wrote this. You're gonna have to forgive me here, but I read this one article about how someone like took a vacation from work by working, right? Like they just kind of gave up their daily, sort of their day to day for a week and just spent that time like working on other things and came away with it with a bunch of new ideas and things to that they could put some action on. And I thought that was maybe you can't get away for a whole week because I know I can't, right? But maybe you can get away for a day or two and just like think about, what are the different pain points in your business that you can grow that are part of that are sort of separated from that day-to-day experience. So that's definitely something that I try to do on a more or less regular basis.
Wow, great advice. I find for myself that works really well is also, and sometimes even kind of traveling and working from the road, taking a trip and just the new environment kind of helps you, kind of lock your brain into some different plane where you come up with some new ideas.
I think that's totally right. Yeah.
I love that. Well, Seiya, thank you so much for being on the show. This was fascinating to hear about how you've been, working to grow Boxed, and about kind of broader tips about what's happening in the world of marketing. So thank you.
Yeah, it was my absolute pleasure. It was really fun, and thanks for asking such interesting questions.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Unleashed. I'm your host, Will Bachman. If you like the show, I invite you to subscribe to the weekly Unleashed email, where you'll get summaries of each recent episode, book recommendations, and consulting tips. To sign up, go to askunleashed.com or to shoot me an email at unleashed@umbrex.com, and I will get you added to that list.